I ask you about the Lamar Jackson situation for two reasons. One, he could never get over the hump while he was at Louisville to beat Clemson. That's good for you. Two, I just, being from the city of where he played at the University of Louisville, it's hard for me to watch a person from the city be at that level consistently and be in limbo be in limbo or have uncertainties if the team that he's played for the last 4 to 5 years even still wants him. What's your thoughts on the situation and everything that constantly comes out? Because I'm to the point with it, man, where it's honestly hard to believe what's said about it at this point.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question that if he was white, he'd have one of the highest contracts we've ever seen. I think that is a very true thing. I think it sucks and I hate it. And I think it's ridiculous, but I'm glad that he's taking care of himself. I'm glad that he's worrying about, him and doing the things necessary that are going to get him a great opportunity. I hope that it doesn't turn into a situation where the league blackballs him or does something crazy where he's, undervalued and things of that nature, because the talent is undeniable. And I would just love to see him, with consistent help around him. I mean, I can show you highlight after highlight of, guys dropping passes and wide open, screaming down the field. Hollywood Brown said, this offense isn't for me. And I can show you 20 drops that were instrumental in why they didn't get as far as they wanted to be. So for me, man, he's a heck of a player. One of the fierce competitors I've ever seen. And you talk about that 2016 game against Clemson. I mean, that's one of my favorite football games I've ever seen. Two of the absolute best, going head to head down to the last play of the game. I just hate what he's going through right now.
Definitely. It's really a travesty about what you said, because that probably is unfortunately playing a part in this currently more than people want to admit. Majority of people probably know it, think it, and feel it, but they're scared to admit what they think and feel, because we're in that society where it's hard to really decipher and put out there what you feel. For me too, also about Lamar, man, it's a lot of people can sit there and say about him not having an agent or this and that or whatever. I try to tell people this. I say this almost verbatim every time. Listen, if he does, he might not have an agent, but look how much money he made himself on his own with his mom. Like, case in point. So I think he's done okay for himself.
100%. 100%. And I mean, at the end of the day, all this stuff is about relationships. It's about, being able to talk to people, being able to hold your worth and talk about money. And if he doesn't need somebody else to do that for him, why is he being, cast away? I mean, wouldn't you rather work directly with a man than having to work with somebody around it or talk to somebody else who maybe doesn't know the situation as good as the person playing for you? So I don't understand that at all. And again, it stinks that he's having to go through that right now.
Definitely. So one more thing about the Lamar situation before we move into other topics, before we end this great conversation that we've been having so far today. Do you at some point, because Mark Ennis from 93.9 ESPN Louisville was talking about it earlier a few hours ago, Lamar has, I think, and the Ravens till like July to get this deal done, and Lamar has up until July to possibly sign with another team. Let's speak hypothetically here for a second on that aspect of the Lamar situation. Let's say Lamar doesn't get signed by another team. If you're Lamar, what do you do? Do you sit it out, or do you go back to the Ravens after all this turmoil, unfortunately?
Yeah, it's a tough situation, man. I mean, we just saw, again, it's crazy. It's around these two quarterbacks, very different reasons. But, we just saw Deshaun Watson sit out for a year before he got his contract. And I think if you go back, you lose all your leverage. I mean, we've seen that time and time again with a guy that stands out the most to me is Melvin Gordon. And he was sitting out and he was waiting until he got his deal and this and that, and a deal never came. And he said, well, okay, I'll sign for X. And it was significantly less. You look at the NBA and, Dennis Schroeder, a guy who was getting offered 80 plus million to play for the Lakers. He said, no, I'm going to test the waters. I think I'm worth more than that. came back and signed for 6, a year later. I mean, so it's crazy that if you're going to stand your ground, you got to stand your ground. And how far is too far? But at the end of the day, it's an interesting thing, man.
It definitely is. One more thing. What's your thoughts on people saying that he's not a quarterback? I laugh at that because the game changes. It ain't what it was when Joe Namath played.
Right. I mean, what does it mean? He can't, throw the football. Obviously, throws the football very, very well. He's so athletic, so smart. Man, I've seen him dissect defenses and absolutely kill them. So I think those people are foolish, and quite honestly, they just don't know football.